When you look at our modern culture, it seems like it has lost its mind. Our cultural elite argue that boys can declare themselves girls and compete in women's sports, that marriage is not necessarily between a man and a woman, but between anyone and anyone, that math is racist, that punctuality is a virtue that is a holdover from our oppressive Puritan past. What causes this insanity? I don't think the answer is at all complicated, and we find it in the New Testament book of Romans. In Romans 1, start reading in verse 20. The Apostle Paul says that men possess the knowledge of God because God's invisible attributes, His eternal power, His divine nature, are clearly perceived. You see evidence for God everywhere. Look at the ancient Greeks. Aristotle argued that simply by observing the natural world, you could logically conclude there had to be a God. And Plato believed the same thing. And the vast majority of Earth's population has believed in a God of some sort. But according to Paul, men suppressed the knowledge of the true God and chose to reject Him. And then they failed to do two things. One, show gratitude to God, and number two, to honor Him for who He is and what He has done. The results of denying the existence of God are catastrophic. Without God, men have become monsters and plunged the world into a dystopia of horrendous prospects. Let me give 10 consequences of unbelief found in Romans 1, although I'm sure you could find many more. Number 1, when men deny the existence of God, they become fools. They think they are wise. They think they're smarter than everyone else. But the opposite is the truth. One ironic observer said, "Some things are so appallingly stupid, only intellectuals believe them." A perfect description of the modern intelligentsia. Today, many intellectuals believe some form of Marxism, even though it has produced the most catastrophic results in the history of the ideas in the human race. But you can go onto any campus and find professors with PhDs who say that Marx's vision is still the best for mankind. Number 2, after getting rid of God and becoming wise in their own eyes, instead of worshiping the true God, men began to worship almost anything else. G.K. Chesterton famously said that when men stop worshiping the true God of the Bible, they do not then worship nothing, they then worship anything. Paul says they worship nature. Do we see any of this today? How many people worship the earth, the natural world, Mother Gaia? They present nature as some kind of deity. Number 3, Paul says that instead of worshiping the true God, men worship idols. The idols may be images of creatures found in nature, or they may be idols of men, like worshiping Caesar, or it could be the idol of worshiping men's ideas. How much damage has been caused in the last 100 years because people worshiped a false Messiah instead of the true God, because people were committed to a false ideology instead of God's Word. Number 4, Paul says rejecting the true God causes a downward spiral into every imaginable kind of sexual immorality. Every sexual act and lifestyle has become acceptable no matter how destructive they are, or how many people they will kill, or how bizarre and perverse they are. It's a perfect description of the present. Number 5, Paul observes that when the true God is denied, it gives rise to violence. Without the restraining hand of God's truth, the world cartwheels into a destructive cycle of murder and mayhem. Rejecting God gives rise to a culture of death. Number 6, if you deny God's existence, you have no basis for right and wrong. There's no such thing as moral responsibility. No one is responsible for anything they do. We see this in district attorneys who refuse to prosecute crime. So many of our large cities have become unlivable and are seeing a mass exodus. People flee the consequences of godlessness. Number 7, the worst consequence of godlessness is the rise of replacement gods, trying to replace the true God. They bring about more evil than anything else in history. See below links to my videos on the leftist cult and the green cult and the great deceptions, and start totaling up the number of lives that have been lost to false gods. Number 8, the denial of God's existence and the unique value of human beings has resulted in the colossal lie that the earth has too many people. The mischief this nonsense has caused is endless, not the least of which is the death of 200 million baby girls. Number 9, denying the existence of God causes the destruction of the fundamental unit of mankind, the family. Today's wise men say that families do not need a mother and father. They deny that there is even such a thing as a mother or father. They deny that there is even such a thing as a man or a woman. They argue that the makeup of the family doesn't matter and that God's design in the Bible can be abandoned. And they wonder why our children are on the greatest path of destruction in the history of our culture. And number 10, without God, men develop hearts of darkness. The unthinkable and unspeakable become the norm. In Isaiah 5, the prophet described this perfectly. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight. End quote. Isn't that a perfect description of mankind today? These are 10 examples drawn from the Bible. There are, of course, many more. You know in your heart that worshiping God really matters. This video is designed to help you understand just a little bit more of why it matters. Thanks for listening. May our God, the true God, whose existence we deny at our peril, bless you this day in a mighty way.